everyone, and welcome to the Only Business Podcast. You're here for the second edition. I'm your host, James West of Only Networking. I'm joined by my co-host, Andy Wood of Pulse 8. Hello, Andy.
Hello, James.
Excellent. Great to have you with us. And we've also got our special guest today, Paul Hill of Everyday Hypnotherapy. Welcome, Paul.
Hi, guys.
Really pleased to have you here. So we've got quite a cool topic to talk about today. Quite an unusual title, and it's about finding your business six-pack. So without further ado, because it's very baffling, I'm going to hand over to Paul to explain what do you mean by the business six-pack. What's that got to do with a hypnotherapist?
Okay. It's a theory of mine. You see, most of the clients that I deal with, the issue normally has something to do with self-esteem, the way they see themselves or the way they perceive that others see them. And I just have this theory about what I call the business six-pack. So we are all born with a six-pack. So you take us three gentlemen here, sitting here now. I have, physiologically, a six-pack.
Do I need X-ray vision for
absolutely,
that
you do.
part? Okay.
As do you, James. As do you, Andy. Now, I've assiduously, over the years, layered mine with fat. You less so, and definitely not you, Andy, at all. Now, if we were both, all three of us rather, to go...
I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to undress and prove the fact that I don't have a six-pack, but...
Different show.
Different show.
So if we were to go on a strict calorie control diet and do an exercise regime, my six-pack would come to the fore because I have one. You see, I think we're all born with a confident six-pack. We all have the ability to crawl and to walk and to talk. And we are encouraged by our parents, our siblings, our extended family to do so. And they encourage us to do all these things, and we thrive. We fall over, but we get up and we go for it because we're told, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it. And then somewhere along the line, we start getting doubt from our parents, from our siblings, from our school friends saying, be careful, speak when you're spoken to, don't do that, only eat this, do that, stop doing that. And we get layered, which I believe is inconfident fat. And then here's the key. We get so used to being layered with it, we layer ourselves with it. So we layer ourselves with self-doubt and inconfident fat. So what I like to think with hypnotherapy is I'm your hypnotic dietician, if you like, stripping away the inconfident fat, because I believe we're all born with an innate confidence.
Can you trademark that, hypnotic dietitian?
I think we might have to give that a go.
Yeah,
get on the phone now.
Yeah,
Hypnotic
I know a guy.
dietitian.
We'll sort that out.
Yeah.
So what's quite important at this juncture is to recognise it's a cool idea and it's a good concept to introduce us to this theme.
Yep.
This podcast isn't about, right, I've identified a problem, now let's go and see a hypnotherapist.
Absolutely not.
I think it's quite important from my perspective to explain why that's applicable day to day, particularly for business owners, because most people aren't going to listen to this and then go and have hypnotherapy, are they?
Yep.
Why is it applicable?
Well, it's applicable because most people, when they go self-employed, like most business owners are, we don't go self-employed thinking we're the best salesman or the best. We have a niche market. Like we like to do, like Andy, he likes to video, but that doesn't mean to say he's going to be the best at all aspects of his business, like the accounting, talking to people, going out and getting new business. He might be absolutely appalling at going to speak to people, brilliant at doing this, but rubbish at speaking to people and getting new business in. But he needs to be able to do that because being good at filming is great, but if you've got nobody to film, it's a waste of time. So you need to be able to build up your confidence, build up your six-pack. And the way to do that is to either see some type of therapist or business coach, whatever, and I'm not here to promote hypnotherapy as that, but to put in place things that you can do for yourself as well as the coaching and the therapy.
We're going to come on to that because we've got some quite good advice based on work that we've done together. I'm quite happy to say I've worked with you myself, Paul, and I know a lot of what we've covered isn't about hypnotherapy. It's all about mindset and affirmations and things like that, but we'll come on to that. Let's just look at the scale of this problem. I mean, that starting point of mental flab or lack of fitness, we're effectively talking about a mental health problem.
Yep.
How big a problem is that in your professional opinion for business owners in particular?
Right. There's an old saying, I studied economics at A-level, and there's an old saying there's lies, damned lies, and statistics. So you've got to be really careful with statistics and where you get them from. But if you take World Health Organization, they reckon that 1 in 4 people suffer mental health issues currently today. 626 million people worldwide are suffering today. And it's establishing that they've got it. And it's then saying, I've got this issue and I need to do something about it. And that's the key. Need to do something about it. and most people don't wish to do anything about it. There are various things that you can do yourself to enable you to overcome. I think it's something like 58% of business owners say that they can't afford to let anybody know that they're suffering mentally because it could affect their business and the way they're seen by their competitors, by their peer group. So they're holding all this angst inside, whereas if they could just let it go and deal with it, they'd be a much better business owner because it comes from the top.
And what about people that are self-employed? Who do they go to?
That's the real difficulty with self-employment, because who do you go to? We have professional people around us, like our accountants and our solicitors, that help set out the business, but there's nobody to talk to. And I guess that's where networking comes in, because you can find in a peer group that there are people that you can talk to, not necessarily therapists, but people in the same boat as you, i.e., I'm self-employed, and it doesn't make any difference what you're self-employed at. It's, I'm self-employed, I'm having this issue. Now, the issue could be an accounting issue. I know a great accountant. It could be a legal issue. I know, or it could be, do you know what? I just don't get it. I make all these phone calls to all these people, and nobody seems to want to take on my service. I can help you with that. What are you saying? I'm saying this. Well, maybe if you said this. So by networking and co-working, you're getting, in effect, some therapy for free, I guess.
I would absolutely agree with you, because when I started my business 9 years ago, for about 2 years, I didn't have the support. I didn't have only networking. I didn't have a mass amount of clients around me. You're right. I only had an accountant who was superb at listening to me, but it wasn't on a mental level to tackle certain issues you've got. Everything seems to be at a practical level when you start off your business. So I would absolutely agree that mental health plays a massive role in the start of your business.
There's also a weird dynamic going on, isn't there, in terms of the connectivity of the world, news reports, social media, all these things that are supposed to connect us. There was a really good column in the Times after Christmas talking about what word would we use to summarise the 2010s, and the word was disconnect.
Yeah, absolutely.
The decline of civic spaces. We've got people aren't even going to the pub anymore, not to get into a debate about the merits of alcohol, but there is a social element. I mean, I think particularly for males, what fills that gap? Social media doesn't do it, because that's actually alienates people. There's a real problem here, isn't there? And I think, Andy, you talked about networking. If we're talking about networking and the value of that, that's just a platform, isn't it? I think for connection. It doesn't really matter how you get that connection, whether you go to a club or, like a yoga session or something like that. It's just people are really disconnected, aren't they? And it does have a massive effect on mental well-being, doesn't
Absolutely.
it?
And I think one of the prime reasons people are disconnected is because of the language. The language that we use, the language that press use. It's catastrophic language. I mean, when was the last time something catastrophic really actually happened? It's somebody says to me, I'm worried about something. I said, take worry out of your vocabulary, saying I'm paying attention to it. Changes the way you think. We were talking the other day about doing talks. If you say to someone, give me a talk on this subject, oh God, I've got to give a talk. Well, how about give an education on that? Educate people about it. I'm happy to do that. I can educate. You're giving the same talk, except we've changed the language to, I want you to educate these people about the subject, rather than talk to them about the subject.
Yeah.
It's all about language.
I heard this last year with the word stress. Stop saying the word stress. You're under pressure instead. And I've been using it more, and it does change your mental well-being in the sense of, well, stress is like something really bad just about to happen. But when you're under pressure, you can cope with pressure.
Part of this, and I'm going to introduce one of the ideas that you brought to me, part of this is to do with perception of success and this kind of self-perpetuating pressure that we put ourselves under, because we're always striving to be bigger, better, faster, more successful. We forget the basics of the fact that, do you know what, in most respects, we're doing fine.
Yeah.
7 out of 10 principle. This is something you taught me. Just explain that, Paul.
Okay, so I work on the basis that if you go to any business coach and you're trying to work out what's a way to help your day, they'll give you an action list to do. And normally action list, you've got 10 items to do. And you get to the end of the day and you've ticked off 7 of them. How do you feel? I'll ask you, Andy, how do you feel? You've ticked off 7, you've got 3 to do. How do you feel?
Defeated.
Why?
Because I didn't achieve the 3, because I have to achieve 10.
Bingo. Now here's the thing. That 7 out of 10 is an A grade at A level. 70% pass, mate.
That's interesting.
Okay, it's taking what have I achieved? I've achieved 7 out of 10, and then you review the 3.
So the half glass full type
Yeah, well,
scenario.
it's similar, but you look at the you look at the 7. You go, look, let's look at the 3. Well, one of those 3 should have been the number 1. That's the frog. There's a book called Eat the Frog. It's about procrastination. So what I should have done, I talking about language, don't use the word should have.
You've tripped yourself up.
I've tripped
now,
myself
'cause
out by
you've
I've removed it. So when making my list, this is where I wanted to place it, but I couldn't because I was too scared. That one, number 1, eat the frog. Deal with the worst possible problem that you can. Get it out of the way first off. So there's one of the 3 that were left. The other 2, you look at them and go, do you know what? They either weren't important enough to make the list in the first place, in which case I should have made a list of 8, because I just added it in to make it a 10, or I could have delegated those 2. I could have given them to someone else to deal with on my behalf because they're not worth me working on them because I needed to do these. And then, if you work on that basis, you've delegated 2, you've got a list of 8, you've got 8 out of 8, 100%. A-star, job done.
If you live on the principle that you have to achieve 10 in order to be successful and have fulfillment, you are never going to have fulfillment, because there's always something that comes along that's new, that's going to fill the gap.
Absolutely.
Celebrate the 7 out of 10. And that's been a real, Andy, you talked about the concept of glass half full. It's too much of a simplification, isn't it? Whereas I think 7 out of 10 just gives you that, I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
I think a pat on the back, as you say.
Absolutely.
You've achieved that 7.
An attitude of gratitude. I've achieved that. But there's a reason why we don't. It's fight or flight. We are, as human beings, we look towards the negative. If you look at TV stations out in the States, ABC, NBC, they've got this saying, if it bleeds, it leads. So we want bad news because people love to hear about bad news, which is why we drive along the motorway and we see an accident and we're always having a look. Why? Because we are, that's the way we're bred. We're looking around us all the time, looking for the bad stuff. But it's a binary decision. You can change your attitude and look for the good stuff. So 7 out of 10, that's really good. That's a good benchmark. I got 7 out of 10.
I think it's going to be my key takeaway from this podcast. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's why I was so keen to introduce that, because I don't need to go to a hypnotherapist in order to understand that as a concept. And what a liberating feeling to say, actually 7 out of 10 is good enough. Because the point that you've done 10, that's the end anyway. You're probably dead at that point.
Yeah.
Because you've completed everything.
Yeah.
Life doesn't work that way, does it? And I think we're just doing our own heads in by trying to get to 10 at every moment.
Absolutely.
So that was a great one. So let's continue on those lines.
Yep.
What other advice can you give to people that isn't to go to a hypnotherapist, but kind of take some of the principles that you've understood to help with mental well-being?
I do this with all my clients, so it's not about hypnotherapy, as you well know, James. Positive affirmations. I'm a great believer in positive affirmations. A positive affirmation, generally speaking, it's something that you know is true about yourself, you want to enhance, or something that you know is definitely not true about yourself, and it's the only time I give my clients permission to lie. Lie to yourself, okay? Because your subconscious mind doesn't understand, but it has to be in the present. So if you want to be the best drone flyer, you tell yourself in the morning 5 times, smiling, in the mirror, I am the best drone flyer
I knew
on
he was
the
going
South
to say
Coast.
the mirror.
Yeah, I'm the best drone flyer on the South Coast, smiling as you do it, okay? Because your subconscious mind will pick up on that. So I'll give you the reason why the subconscious mind. Okay, what car did you drive?
Seat Leon.
Right, a Seat Leon. Okay, so when you went to buy that car, you look, yeah, Seat Leon, I like the look of that, it's got the right spec, blah, blah, blah. When you drove it off the forecourt, every single car you saw the rest of that day was a Seat Leon.
Absolutely.
Okay, because
And before that, because I made a decision.
because your antenna was up for Seat Leons, and I didn't realise that many about. In the same way, with your subconscious mind, you're giving your subconscious mind that antenna to go, what can I look for to make what he's saying true? I am the best drone flyer. I am a good dad. I am a good listener. I am a good husband. I live in abundance.
This is all
Yeah.
in the mirror.
In the mirror. I am a money magnet. Abundance comes to me. But here's the thing you don't do. You don't say, I don't want to worry anymore. Because the subconscious doesn't understand negatives. All it hears is worry. So it will find out. So if I said to both of you now, this is an instruction, a negative instruction. Do not right now think of pink elephants jumping on trampolines. You're thinking of pink elephants jumping on trampolines. Because the subconscious has heard that, it hasn't heard don't. Which is why if a child is running into the traffic, you say, don't run. All they hear is, run. So what you need to say is, stop or walk. And they'll do those things because that's an instruction, a positive instruction. So positive affirmations have to be in the now as if you've already achieved it. So for instance, if you're a weight loss client or someone wants to, I am sylph-like. I easily fit into a size 34 jean. When you're a 44-inch waist like me, that's not the case. But if I tell myself enough, then my subconscious will go, do you really need to eat that cake? You're the sort of person that fits in a 34-inch jean.
It does sound mumbo jumbo.
It does.
And I think the bit where I started to understand it, I don't know where maybe I worked this out or you just explained this to me, is that I started noticing my own internal dialogue. And a lot of it is very negative.
Yeah.
I'm looking at what I haven't done. I'm looking at the things that I doubt, and I'm not bigging up or really emphasizing the things that are positives, that are things to celebrate.
Yeah.
Well, then by logic, was it you that said the thing about your personality is the product of the 5 people that you spend most time with?
Jim Rohn's is this guy. You're the average of the 5 people you spend most time with.
And the principle's the same, isn't
Yeah.
it? If you spend all day telling yourself and having internal dialogue that's negative, of course it's going to be a negative outcome. So you're trying to combat that, aren't you?
Yeah, and if you spend all day talking to people about negative things or negative people, guess what? You're going to get the same result. If you up your game and spend a coffee morning speaking to people with positive aspects, like going to networking, where you are able to listen to the negative stuff so that you can help them, but what you're really wanting is for people to tell you their success stories. How did you do that? How did you overcome this? Where do we go from here? I can do that. I can do that. So the mantra is, I can, what's next? I can, what's next? I can, what's next? And if you get that mantra over in your head, then I'll ask you a question. If we go home from this podcast session, you go to your home, somebody's broken in, they haven't stolen anything, but they've got a big spray can of red paint saying, Andy's an idiot. Andy couldn't fly a drone if it's to save his life. You can't do a podcast, right? Okay, so the police aren't interested. What would you do with that room?
Just paint over it.
Bingo, you would paint over it because those words have no meaning and you don't want them. So why do we allow other people, and more importantly ourselves, to put those words in the room of our heads and not redecorate?
It's really interesting. Like, spend some time, and this is as much for the audience listening, but I'm going to ask you, Andy.
You're going to pick on me as well?
I'm going to pick on you. Like, spend time noticing your own internal dialogue and the things that you say to yourself.
So we're just going to go silent on this, and you're just going to give me that look.
Well, perhaps it's all positive. Is it?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Spend time yourself. It's the same as like we put a car for do insurance, but we won't do any insurance on ourselves or an MOT on ourselves. Spend time looking at your brain, looking at things which are coming in, and as Paul says, redecorate. I've actually got this mental image of decorating in my brain.
Yeah. And it is. There's the old saying facts tell, stories sell. Basically what you're doing is selling to yourself, because stories, we think in stories. So if you say those stories to yourself, I've told you a story about redecorating the inside of your head. Now you've got that story and thinking, yeah, I get that.
I think a lot of people can certainly get on board of that visual image of actually redecorating and painting certain areas of your brain in order to get rid of negative or things which have entered.
Yeah, and that's how it works. So positive affirmations are my first go-to, and I've got 22 that I do every single morning, but they're fluid. I change them as and when I want, depending on my mood. But I do them every single morning. So it's on the basis of: would you go out without cleaning your teeth? No, you go back inside and clean your teeth. Would you go out without having a wash or a shower? No, you go back and have a wash or a shower. Would you go out without saying your positive affirmations? No. You say them first thing in the morning as early as you can. If you've got them on your windscreen visor in miniature and you want to say them throughout the day, great. Get them over and done with early in the morning so that they're constantly there for you.
Is specific better than generic?
Yeah, definitely specific. You can go onto Google, and if you put in positive affirmations, you'll be deluged. You just find the ones, Google it, positive affirmations that affect your health, positive affirmations that affect your happiness, positive affirmations that affect your wealth, blah, 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 blah. Pick the ones that are right for you, make them personal, And rather than typing them out, better to write them out so that they become personal to you. It's your handwriting. Take ownership.
All I can say is give it a go. It is pretty cool, actually. So the other thing that we talked about in terms of tips for improving mental health is being in the moment.
Yep.
And I have issue with this because having spent time doing meditation, and I think people, it's another one of those things that you kind of stick in a box and say, well, I haven't got time to do that. I'm not going to sit and meditate and try and think of nothing. Explain that concept and why it's so powerful day to day.
I don't think you need to spend an awful lot of time meditating over it. It's just being in the present, maybe sitting down for 5 minutes and just link it with an attitude of gratitude you like, thinking in the present. What's the saying? The past is history, the future is mystery, the present's now, and the present is a gift. That's why it's called the present. It's a present. And it's just about taking a moment, because what we did 5 minutes ago in this podcast has no relevance right now. This minute, right now, has relevance for my immediate future, because what I say now is going to have impact on what the next question is going to be. I can't go back and change what I've said, but I can have complete control of my present. Like. You can edit it, which would be great. And if you can make that side better than this side, that'd be lovely, and a bit of makeup on here. But I'm in the present moment, and it's concentrating on the present on the present moment to enable you to have that future. And it's just that attitude of gratitude, going, do you know what? And it doesn't have to be something major. You don't have to go through life going, oh, I'm so grateful that I got that £10,000 contract, or I'm so grateful that I managed to do that sale. It's, do you know what? It's a lovely sunny day today, and I love my garden, and it's going to make the garden really beautiful, and I'm really grateful that the sun's shining today. Or I had a lovely phone call from my daughter, and she's told me that she's going to be in sports day and she's doing the egg and spoon. What a fantastic thing. I'm grateful that I'm self-employed and I'm able to go and see it, because lots of people employed wouldn't be able to do that. And it's those little things, and you build up the attitude of gratitude. Again, you're reinforcing with your subconscious mind, it's okay to be you, it's okay to be alive. Take a nice good deep breath. It's going back to Caesar saying, seize the day. Because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Yesterday, who cares? It's happened.
It's
Today
also really,
is the most important.
Like, if your mind's anything like mine, going at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and it does sound a bit hippie-ish, just standing and looking up at the sky and having a breath and just listening to what's around you, just takes you out of your head. And I find it so peaceful, those moments, and then I can get back on with it. But because otherwise it's just a constant deluge of sound and thought.
And it's finding what's right for you. Don't be press ganged into going for a lovely walk in the countryside and communing. If that's what it works for you, go for a walk in the country. If yoga works for you, if sitting down watching your favorite TV program where you know you zone out works for you, then do it. It's whatever works for you, where you can just take, and breathing. If there's one thing I would encourage everybody to do, go to yoga for 6 months and get them to teach you how to breathe. Or if you're lucky enough to have a young child, watch them breathe, because they do what's called diaphragmatic breathing. They breathe from their stomachs. We breathe from the chest. Learn to breathe, and that is a key. So the other thing is pretty much why I go to networking, and why a lot of people go to networking, is being able to open up to someone. The old saying is, a problem shared is a problem halved.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't necessarily need to go to a therapist to get therapy. It's just having someone that's prepared to listen to you. And one of the things I say to people is this: we are very polite as British people, aren't we? So the first thing we say when we see someone is, hi, James, how are you? Waiting for, I'm fine. And the polite thing is, and how are you? I'm fine. And then we get on with our lives, not really giving a monkeys. I believe that if you are going to put yourself out there to ask somebody how they are, you should have 10 minutes set aside just in case they actually want to tell you how they are. And have a listening ear, so that they can sometimes just tell you something great, but oftentimes just tell you a little bit about what's going on in their lives. And if you're prepared to take it on without taking it inside, but to take it on and listen to them, they were talking to you like this, and then as they're talking to you, you see them release.
We'll explain to our listeners, Paul was hunched over as he said that.
Oh, because it's podcast, yes.
This is, some people will be watching this on a video and an audio. So when somebody is actually telling their story to somebody and somebody's actually listening, Paul just was hunched over.
Yeah.
And as he was finishing what he was saying, he lifted himself up and felt more straight in his back. And
You can see, because 87% of communication is non-verbal.
I think when we talk about only networking in particular, that key word always comes up: connection.
Yeah.
But it's removing barriers to connection, because if it's too salesy and it's too business led, because at base we're all human beings, right? First and foremost, it's the obvious thing, isn't it? But it's like any scenario. If you put too many barriers in the way of connection and protocol and expectation, that connection doesn't happen. And that's what, if you look at any study to do with mental well-being, connection's always in there. It might just be phrased differently. People need to be connected to other people in a meaningful way. That doesn't matter whether you get it at networking or not. It can be any network, it can be only, it can be any other place. As long as you've got connection, I think that's when you feel at ease, because it's not just all on you, that burden, isn't it?
Being kind improves your mental health. So if that's a takeaway, take it away. And being kind, you could see an old lady crossing the road, just offering to take her bags and say, look, I'll just help you cross the road. Or you see somebody struggling with anything. Today, putting away your equipment. I know that if I say, can I help you? You'll probably say, no, sorry, but I've got it sorted out. So, look, come on, we can get this done together. It's random acts of kindness.
And it's also, I think, not necessarily getting caught into this idea that I've got to pour my heart out at every opportunity. That can be useful. I think Kelly, my wife, as most of you will know, she would condone very much the act of just talk to people, because there's always going to be problems. There's always going to be things in your head, but just it takes you out of that world by realizing that there's other things going on. Everyone's got problems. Just have conversations.
Yeah.
It's such a healthy thing to do, and it doesn't need to be that we share everything.
No.
We're sharing life together, not necessarily sharing our deepest, darkest at every opportunity. I think that's
it's just
very useful.
it's having the conversation, but being prepared that when someone wants to share, that you're a listening ear and can just listen. You don't have to take it on board. You don't have to be able to solve the problem. And it might be that you can point them in the right direction of someone that could help them, not necessarily a therapist, but somebody that's been through the same issue. I go, do you know what? It's really weird you should talk to me about that particular thing, because I was speaking to John, James, Henry, whatever it happens to be, and they went through that last year. So let me put you in contact with them. How good do you feel that you've been able to facilitate a possible change in that person's life? But you're not, here's the thing, kindness is about doing something for no gain. That's the important bit. There's no gain other than a lovely warm feeling inside.
Very true. So let's sum up. What would you say? I suppose the final question, how do you know the difference between I need some help here and I need to just tweak things and put some of the things into play that we've talked about today?
That's a really difficult question for each individual person, because, again, the word individual. I think if you're just talking because you've got an issue and it's something that's niggling away at you, and about business or a personal issue, and you find benefit by just sharing it with a friend and you feel that lift and you genuinely feel better off for it, fine. If you find that the same issue is coming up over and over and over again, and talking about it to a friend or several friends isn't, then maybe you need to go down more of the professional help, because what you're doing at the moment isn't working. And it's like, I guess, if you want to get permanent change, you have to get out of your comfort zone. So you could say your comfort zone is every now and again talking to your best mate about the same sort of problem. Well, to get out your comfort zone is to talk to a professional, and for them to put in place things that you might not necessarily like the idea of because it's out of your comfort zone. But then once you start doing it, there's that moment where you go, all right, I get it now. And you then make permanent change, because you're not going back to that lovely... It's really weird, because even though people are going through really bad traumas, it's like a comfortable pair of slippers. At least I know where I am with my anxieties. At least I know where I am with my worries and my stresses. It feels comfortable. I don't like it, but it feels comfortable. Well, do you want to change? Yes, I do. Well, do this, this, and this. But really, I've got to do those positive affirmations every day. Yeah. And I've got to do this. Yeah. Okay. And then you get the change. You think, now what you've done is you've redeveloped a new comfortable pair of slippers.
Yes. Perfect conclusion.
I like to think so.
Well, on that note, I think we've come to the end there. Fantastic. Paul Hill, thank you ever so much for your time today.
No problem at all, James.
Thank you, Andy, for all of your contribution
Thank
and
you, James.
your sterling video and production work. That's been the Only Business Podcast. I'm James West. We hope you have a great month. Thanks for listening or watching, and take care.